Hey guys, I am back with another report from my 2022 Grand Pacific Open tournament trip. This is round 4. I was having a great tournament up to this point with a score of 2.5 out of 3. I was playing in the under 1700 section, and everything was going fantastic so far. I was slowly making my way up to the higher board numbers. I'll probably include like a photo here while I'm talking, but yeah, as you know, if you don't know, in a tournament, the better your score, the lower the board number you go to, and you slowly make your way up to to board number 1, board number 2, and I was getting to that corner of the room where the top players were. Yeah, so my opponent, I hadn't heard of him before or seen him around. He was a younger kid. I'm so bad guessing ages. Maybe 12 years old. Maybe hard to say. And I actually analyzed the game with him after. He was the only player. No, I analyzed with one other player. Yeah. Yeah, so he was rated 1196. Yeah, okay, sorry. He was white, by the way, so this should be flipped. Okay. Okay, that's I think that's all there is to say about that. Yeah, let's get going. Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. So he played d4. Knight f6, c4. Now it's interesting. A few years ago, every kid I played, they all played the London. Like I've played so many Londons, and and now I'm getting no London. Everyone's playing d4 c4. It's really interesting. Okay. Anyways, I played e6, knight f3. Oh, yeah. Okay. And I played b6, knight c3. Now, excuse me. I just finished recording round 3 before this one, so my throat's a little dry. Now, what's interesting is the night before this game, I was talking to one of my regular viewers on Twitch, and he recommended that I watch. Sorry, I forget what is her name. I think is it Anna Cramling? I think her name's Anna Cramling, and so I watched her round 1 video from the Reykjavik Open, and she actually played this opening as white. And I've got theory on this. I've played this many times, but in this position, just to make sure I remembered, I decided to look up my repertoire and what I play against this. If it was bishop b7 or bishop b5 or bishop b4, and it was actually bishop b4, and I believe this is called the 3 knights variation, or sorry, the Kasparov variation of the 3 knights variation. And it can, the reason why I play bishop b4 is we can transpose into I think it's called the Duchamp variation, which I find extremely fun to play as black. Probably it's like the only fun line I find against d4, really, in what I play. So basically, long story short, if I hadn't watched that video, I don't know, there's a good chance I would have played bishop b4 anyways, but I would have been extremely unsure about it. So watching that video and then checking my repertoire after, and this was the night before the round, it made me remember that we can transpose into the Duchamp variation. So yeah, long story short, it was helpful to watch that video and then check my repertoire after. So yeah, I played bishop b4, bishop g5, and I played h6. Now, most of these moves will transpose. Here I think you could just take the knight first on c3 because it's forced, or you could play bishop b7. So h6 is actually not my actual repertoire move, but they all transpose. Bishop h4, g5. This is the Duchamp line that I find very fun to play. bishop g3. And again, these moves I'll transpose. The move order doesn't really matter. Knight e4, queen c2, bishop e7. So you can transpose in many different move orders. And e3. So this is a common tabia that I've played a fair bit, but I don't know it super deep. I know it a bit farther than this, but I find it very fun to play with black. So d6, just basically just letting our knight develop. Bishop d3, whoa. Bishop d3. f5, just defending the knight, right? This is all theory. And then he thought for a long time here. I mean, even a few moves before, he was thinking a long time. He obviously was not familiar with this. I mean, if I flip the board, it looks scary. Like if you're playing in a tournament and you're not familiar with this position, it's scary. I mean, I was getting up, walking around, and like online, it doesn't really, you might not get his phase, but in a serious over the board tournament, these pawns and all of this is, I think it's kind of terrifying as a way. So anyways, so he took, which I've never seen anybody do before. And obviously he was not familiar with this opening. And I thought that he might take. I thought, like, it was the very first thing I considered because he was thinking so long. So I thought he might actually take. And yeah, so I took back. And well, technically black only holds a small edge here, but it's such a enjoyable edge. It's such a enjoyable position to play as black. So the main idea here in these positions for white is for white to play, to challenge my knight and play knight d2, but white can't do that here because then the g2 pawn is hanging, right? Because of my bishop. So I think that's what he was trying to figure out. I told him after the game that he could just castle here first and then play knight d2 because now his king is defending g2. And he said he was scared of that because then my pawns start rolling. But actually, white can actually hold there. Whoops. Oh, sorry. So, for example, well, it's so hard to use chess base. Okay, so for example, if he castles and if I make a random move, okay. So something like this, he was scared, like I'm going to start pushing, but I think he's fine. I think he can just play h3, and if I push, I think he just goes back. And if I keep pushing, I think okay, I might be wrong here because this does look very good. But I thought, I mean, technically white is supposed to be okay here. I think he can just, well, no, that's not good. So I might be, unless it's h4. Yeah, maybe h4. And then if I keep pushing, he can just like go here to f4. And if I take, I think he can hold here still. And he can even just play g3. But technically, white is okay. The main line is actually d5, which I don't know very well because I don't get this position that often. So white could castle here or play d5. I think there's one other move as well that white could play. But yeah, taking is not the best option. So this is what happened in the game. Okay, and then at this point, everything in my head, like my inner voice was saying, Tyler, just develop and play knight d7. Just develop and play knight d7 here, and then you can, then you can get going with the attack. You can push the pawns later. I just couldn't help myself because often in this line, black can get super aggressive with these pawns. And so even though I thought, the safe decision is to play knight d7, I played h5. I don't know. I couldn't help myself. What can I say? So here I considered h4. It was the very first move I considered. But I miscalculated. I wrote it off too quickly because I thought I could just play g4 and then he has to move the knight somewhere. And then I just win a pawn, right? However, he did play h4. I played g4, and then well, before he even, as soon as he played h4, I realized, oh my god, if I play g4, he can just play knight g5. And even though I can take on g2, now he's hitting e6, and with tempo, now he's hitting my queen as well, and he's threatening a fork. So I thought for an extremely long time here, relatively speaking. I forget what. Oh, do I have? Oh, I got this game. How long did I think here? Move 14. Whoa, yeah. I thought I went from 85 minutes and then to 58 minutes. So I went from what? And I went from an hour and an hour 25 to under an hour. Sorry, what? 27 minutes? Is that right? Anyways, yeah. Wait, no, that can't be right. I can't even do math. Let me open the calculator because I'm so terrible. I'm really, really bad at math. Okay. 85 minus. Yeah, 27 minutes. Holy crap. I don't even, I knew I spent a long time. I spent 27 minutes. Like, I'm just looking, well, I don't want to give away the game, but like I spent 27 minutes. I can't believe that. Like, we get an hour. I spent a third of the whole time on this move? Yeah, wow. Sorry, I'm not trying to play it up for the camera. I'm shocked. Holy crap. 27 minutes. I spent 27. I'm just gonna update that in my notes here, in my annotation. I spent 27 minutes here. Okay. Wow, I can't believe that. So yeah, because I was basically, I was shocked, and I guess I just showed you what the move was, but and I was angry at myself because I had a very favorable position. I mean, objectively, black is only slightly better here, but actually it's pretty close to equal. But I knew my opponent was uncomfortable in this, and yeah, so the thing too here is I was thinking h3, and h3, yeah, we have a good answer. H3, I think I was planning h4, and then I think that's what I was planning. Yeah, then I was planning g5, I think. I think that's what I was planning, or g4. So I had a response for h3, and he has no other moves. But yeah. So anyways, h4. So after a very long think, I played g4. So he does play knight g5. I take on g2, and he plays rook g1, which he has to, otherwise he loses the rook. And then I just go back to b7, and I let him take on e6 because, well, I don't have a choice, and I played queen e7. So this was all part of that calculation. And so now I'm not up a pawn, but black is quite happy here. I mean, look at this. I mean, we still have this diagonal. Let me do something in the background really quick. Oh, never mind. It's still good. Yeah, we still have this diagonal. His knight is under attack. His pawn structure is a little bit bad, and we have this really strong structure here. So hard to use chess base. Yeah, so I made the right decision of how I continued here. He played d5, which I didn't even consider, but I just played bishop c8 because the bishop, the bishop is no longer good on this diagonal. I'm not going to break this open realistically. I mean, it's not good to. So I just simply go to bishop c8, knight g5, knight d7, e4, And then I made a bit of a mistake here. I played knight c5. I mean, it very, very natural move to play. And I also thought for a while here too. How long did I think here? Move 20. 9 minutes. Yeah, I spent 9. I mean, yeah. So I spent 9 minutes here. Yeah, I was thinking between c takes, which was actually the best move, and knight c5. It was a real coin flip here. I could have flipped a coin either way. Yeah, but I went with knight c5. The problem with knight c5 is that I didn't see that white could have followed up with e5, which is kind of nice for white. I forget what the eval was here after e5, but I think white was slightly better, something like that, or equal, something like that. But it was yeah. So e5 here was something that I should have considered. Instead, he took on f5, and I trade queens. Yeah, trade queens, and then I take on f5. He gets his king out of the way, opening up the e file for his rooks. I do the same thing. Rook e1, you know, getting our rooks into play. Bishop f4. He doesn't want to trade rooks here because he gives me the file. And okay, I trade because the endgame is better for me because of the pawn structure. And yeah, I thought for a little while here because there's a lot of good options for black. Like bishop d3, just picking up a pawn. I was really thinking about, and I think that was actually the best move here. I think it was the best move, and I was really thinking about it. But instead I played knight d3, forking the rook and the bishop. And here I thought he might be able to play rook e6, but and which he does, which is the best move by far. But I misremembered my calculation when I came upon this, because this is what happened. And so yeah, I took the pawn. Yeah, and that's so the issue here is that if I take it's a bishop. If I take the bishop, he can play rook f6, and you know, I'm going to lose one of my minor pieces back, and he has this really he'll end up with a rook and this outposted knight, which are strong together. I mean, I think it's totally equal. Black might even still be a tiny bit better, but it would have been simpler before if I had just played bishop d3. I took the pawn instead. He went rook f6. I went knight e4, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4. So I was feeling good here because we're up a pawn. We have a passed pawn, and our pawns are better than white's, right? He has an isolated pawn. He has two double pawns here, another isolated pawn. And I mean, it's night and day between the pawns, right? Like, my pawns are almost as good as they could be. His pawns are about as bad as they could be. However, it wasn't so simple to convert. Well, what I should say, it was, I didn't, yeah, I was feeling good, but I'm like, okay, but now how do I win? How do I win? It's not as simple as it looks. He has an active bishop and an active rook. So he plays bishop g3, blockading my pawn and just making me prove that I'm winning. And again, yeah, maybe you guys are saying, yeah, it's super easy to win, but I didn't think it was. Like, I thought you know, you got to figure it out. So time wise, we were equal on the clock here. We both had about 30 minutes. So I played bishop f3, just kind of trapping his rook. You know, I'm not trapped here with you, you're trapped in here with me type of thing. He plays rook f3. Oh, sorry, rook f5 rather. King e7. I didn't really have a clear plan. I think I was, because, you know, the thing is I can't move my rook, right? My rook has to defend my h-pawn. So I was hoping to somehow get my king to defend the pawn, basically. Bishop f4, he's just repeating. He's saying, prove it. Prove that you're winning, which I think is a good plan. I think this is good on how he did this. I went king d7, bishop g3, and here he offered me a draw. And I had to be careful here because I think if I just go king d7, I think that's a draw here. I think that 3 times. Yeah, so he offered me a draw. And you know, I was thinking, geez, like I know I can always fall back on a draw, but I should be winning. Like I should win this game. I'm up a pawn. My pawns are better. It is opposite colored bishops. You know, that's a big worry. But my pawns are so much better. And there's rooks on the board, right? So I came up with a bit of a plan here. And I declined the draw, and I played rook h7. Rook g5. King e7. Rook f5, just repeating. Bishop e4. Rook g5. Here my opponent offered me another draw. No, thank you. King f7, king e3, bishop g6. Ta-da! His rook is trapped. His rook is now trapped, and now my bishop can defend the h-pawn, and my rook can leave and get active. So his rook is trapped. Yeah, my opponent thought for a while here, and I think he knew. Yeah, he knew, you know. King f4, rook h8, rook h5 check. Yeah, takes, rook e8, king g5, rook e3, and then my opponent resigned. So I won the game, and I appreciate that he resigned. I also appreciate that he didn't offer me a draw every move like some opponents have done in the past. Yeah, and I really liked how I trapped his rook. And I mean, black is better, so I mean it's not like it's not an amazing find or anything, but yeah, bringing in the rook. So yeah, bringing in the rook and the king and then the bishop to kind of work together to free up my rook from having to defend the h-pawn. And then ultimately he got his rook trapped. But even if he hadn't got the rook trapped, I think I was planning, essentially it's the same type of idea. Probably I was planning something like this. I don't know if it would quite work because he has this and then a discovery, but I would probably do it. Whoops, so hard to use chess space. I would probably have done it, I don't know, maybe something like this, and then bring the rook out, and then actually, well, the bishop just defends it no matter what anyways. So, I mean, it probably would have just been simply winning no matter what, but yeah, so just a quick recap of the game. We got to play our fun Duchamp line. He misplayed this a little bit, but it's still playable. Like, this is, I think black is like 50 center pawns better. It's not like major. It's not major. White is still in the game. But that was, yeah, a little bit misplayed. I should have just played knight d7 here. And yeah, e5 would have been a little bit better for white here. And yeah, I mean, the rest of the game was kind of just played itself more or less. Yeah, so at the end of round 4, I was now 3.5 out of 4. So I was having a great tournament up to this point. But yeah, 3.5 out of 4. Let me think. So day 1 was round 1. Day 2 was round 3. Was round 2 and 3. Yeah. So the round 4 was in the morning, and then I had round 5 at 6 p.m. So yeah, I went to get lunch at a restaurant, and then I had round 5. Yeah. Anyways, that is round 4. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for round 5 coming up.